everyone, I'm the Tax Pro, and today we're going to talk about Form 1099 Miscellaneous, or 1099 MISC. Now, we have already done a video on 1099 NEC, which is 1099 Non-Employee Compensation. So it used to be that those forms, that 1099 NEC and 1099 Miscellaneous, used to be all those items were just on the 1099 Miscellaneous, okay? So if you've come to this video because you have non-employee compensation that you need to report, so you paid a contractor, that actually now goes on 1099 NEC, okay? So there's a video for 1099 NEC. That's the video that you're looking for. They are now separate forms as of a couple of years ago. So let's talk about 1099 Miscellaneous. When do you need to file these? What does it look like? How do you fill it out? All that good stuff. So this is the About form section of the IRS website. So these About pages are oftentimes really good places to start and just kind of understanding the basics of the forms that we're talking about. So you'll see here that it gives you information on, you need to file Form 1099 Miscellaneous for each person. Now this really means each person or business to whom you have paid during the year at least $10 in royalties or broker payments in lieu of dividends or tax-exempt interest, or at least $600 in rents, prices and awards, other income payments, payments to an attorney, all that good stuff. In addition, you can use Form 1099 Miscellaneous to report that you made direct sales of at least $5,000 of consumer products to a buyer for resale anywhere other than a permanent retail establishment. So I want to clarify a couple of things here. If you watched our 1099 NEC video, you're probably thinking, well, wait a minute, because payments to attorneys are made on Form 1099 NEC, and there's also a box to report this $5,000 of consumer products, right? That is true. So the $5,000 of consumer products can be reported either on Form 1099 NEC or Form 1099 Miscellaneous, but we do not want to report those payments on both forms, okay? So you just need to report either on a 1099 NEC or a 1099 Miscellaneous. You just check the box and move on, okay? So don't file both forms, pick one or the other. When it comes to payments to attorneys, 1099 NEC is going to be used for services that you have paid for to an attorney. Okay, so services that the attorney has provided you. There may be other payments, though, that you will pay to an attorney, such as payments for settlements and that kind of thing. So that might go through the attorney. Those are reported on 1099 Miscellaneous, okay? So two separate ways to report attorney payments. It depends on the characteristic of those particular payments. If it's for services, it goes on 1099 NEC. Other payments to attorneys or legal firms goes on 1099 Miscellaneous. Okay, so let's go through the actual instructions a little bit more in depth. So this is, I should mention, these are the instructions for Form 1099 Miscellaneous and 1099 NEC. So we're going to see both here. Specific instructions for Form 1099 Miscellaneous. So here is your dollar amount minimums, okay? So at least $10 in royalties gets reported on 1099 Miscellaneous or broker payments in lieu of dividends or tax-exempt interest. So there's a whole bunch of them. And then at least $600 in rents, prices and awards, etc. Most commonly, you're probably looking at rent to a landlord, right? So rent that you pay for a business space is going to be included on 1099 Miscellaneous. Now there's a couple of exceptions to reporting on 1099 Miscellaneous I'm going to go over, okay? And right here you'll see it says you may either file Form 1099 Miscellaneous or Form 1099 NEC to report sales totaling $5,000 or more of consumer products, okay? Okay, so as a reminder, 1099 Miscellaneous is only filed for business transactions. If you have somebody that comes in and remodels your personal house, and you're not like renting that home or anything like that, that is a personal transaction. It's not a business transaction. We don't need to worry about 1099s for that, okay? This is for payments made in the course of your trade or business. Personal payments are not reportable right here. Personal payments are not reportable. Nonprofits, for the purpose of 1099s, do count as being in trade or business, okay? So nonprofits do need to file 1099 forms for payments made for services and rent and all that good stuff. Okay, so the following payments to corporations. So corporations are not subject to reporting on 1099 miscellaneous for many items. So these are the items in which if the business that you paid is a corporation, you still have to report those transactions on 1099 miscellaneous, okay? I'm going to show you how you'll know that in just a minute. Attorneys are the same. If attorneys are corporations, you still have to report payments to attorneys, okay? Even if they are corporations. So right here, payments to corporations for legal services. Obviously, the actual legal services themselves go on 1099 NEC. Other payments to attorneys go on 1099 miscellaneous. Okay, tax identification numbers. There is one. Okay, so here's some exceptions. We just went through payments to corporations. Any company that is treated as a C or an S corporation outside of those exceptions that we talked about. However, there's also an exception for Form 1099-K payments. Okay, this one confuses a lot of people, so I'm going to go over it a little slower. 1099-Ks are forms that are issued by payment processors to the recipient of those funds. Okay, for example, PayPal, if you pay somebody via PayPal goods and services, PayPal is then required to issue them a 1099-K if they reach a certain threshold. Okay, same with QuickBooks, same with Square, Stripe, all that good stuff. Melio, if you're using Melio, they are required to issue 1099-K forms in the event that that third party that you are paying reaches a certain threshold through their payment platform, okay? You are not required to determine if they've reached that threshold or if PayPal properly issued the 1099-K. You're not required to do any of that. Essentially, if you pay a third party through a payment processor in a manner in which they may be subject to 1099-K reporting, you don't report those payments. So for example, if I pay a contractor $700 to update my website or whatever, if I have paid them $700 through a payment processor, and it's marked as a business transaction, I'm not reporting anything on 1099, miscellaneous or NEC, okay? The reason being is because if they receive that 1099-K and you issue them a 1099 miscellaneous, all of a sudden we're double reporting income to the IRS. The IRS is going to start looking for more revenue than what that company maybe made. Okay, so there's no need to report that. How do you know if the payment is potentially subject to 1099-K reporting? Okay, credit card, debit card transactions are subject to 1099-K reporting, unless you are going through a system like PayPal and you are marking it as friends and family. Okay, if you are using your credit card or your debit card at a business establishment, it is more than likely subject to 1099-K reporting, unless they are trying to run it through a personal account, which they shouldn't be, and they're asking you to mark it like friends and family, then it's subject to 1099K reporting. Items that would not be subject to 1099K reporting. If you paid somebody in cash, like physical cash, that physical cash is not subject to 1099K reporting, okay? Because there's no third party involved. You're literally handing somebody cash. Checks, unless it's some sort of electronic check, it is not subject to 1099K reporting. Electronic checks may or may not be. If you are sending an electronic check to somebody through a system like QuickBooks where they sent you an invoice and then you're sending them a payment, that's subject to 1099K reporting. If I initiate an ACH transaction, like an electronic check, from my banking system is probably not subject to 1099K reporting, okay? Wires are not going to be subject to 1099K reporting unless you're going through a third party, okay? So you need to know what payment systems that you're using are subject to 1099K reporting, because those are exempt. Now let's talk about the corporation exemption. When you pay somebody any of these items, okay, any of these amounts, and you know that you're going to end up having to give them a 1099 miscellaneous or a 1099 NEC. So you know that it's going to reach that threshold, and you know that that payment type is not subject to 1099K reporting. You need to get a W-9 on file before you hit these thresholds, okay? Before you hit the thresholds. Let me show you what a W-9 is. I don't have it pulled up yet. Okay, let me show you Form W-9. Form W-9 is on the IRS website. It's right here. It's a request for taxpayer identification number and certification. Okay, so you send this W-9 to the contractor, to whomever you're using, the attorney, etc. You ask them to fill this out. They're going to provide you the name of the entity or individual. So you could potentially be paying an individual, right? And then they're going to tell you how they're taxed. So they're going to put an individual or sole proprietorship. These guys are not exempt from 1099 NEC or miscellaneous reporting unless it's really like a 1099K, okay? Then they're going to mark a C corporation, an S corporation. They may mark an LLC and put that they're taxed as a C or an S, okay? So C corporations and S corporations fall under that exemption for corporate companies, right? Now, if they're an attorney, they don't get that exemption. If they meet some of the other exceptions to that rule, again, they don't meet that exemption. So that's how you know if they're a corporation or not. They're then going to put their social security number or their EIN, and then they're going to certify that they are not subject to backup withholding. This is really important, okay? If they tell you they are subject to backup withholding, you are actually required to collect income tax withholding from that company or that individual and remit it to the IRS and potentially the state, even if they are contractors, okay? So they're gonna sign and certify that they are exempt from withholding. They're gonna give you this form. Now what happens if they refuse? Then you don't send them payment. Okay, what happens if they refuse but you've already sent them payment and you need to report their payments on 1099s? You tell them, you gotta ask them twice for this information, they have to refuse twice, okay? And then the way I normally handle it is, hey, I can report it anyways. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to Form 1099 miscellaneous. I know this is the first time we've looked at this. And I'm gonna mark the box that says that you refuse to give me your tax identification number. And then the IRS is gonna have questions for you. Okay, normally that gets them to give you their identification number. If they still don't give you their identification number, that's literally what you do. You mark this box, you write in all the information that you know, you send it to the IRS. The IRS is probably gonna send you a penalty because you're required to collect this information before you issue payments. So the IRS is gonna give you a slap on the wrist. Hopefully you won't do that again. And then you won't receive any more penalties, right? So that's the way that this works if they refuse to give you their tax identification number. So let's talk about how to fill this out, assuming that we got like a good W-9 and all that on file. We've determined that these payments are not exempt from reporting because either they're a corporation or because of 1099-K reporting. They have to be reported, right? So let's say this is a landlord that we're paying. What we're gonna do is we're gonna fill out this payer area with our information. Okay, our name, our street address, our zip code, our telephone number. We're gonna put our tax identification number right here in this box. Now, if you are a sole proprietorship, you may not have an EIN, you might only have a social security number. Please, please, please go to the IRS website, it is free. You can get an EIN for you personally. Okay, you can get an EIN for you personally so that you're not putting your social security number on here. I don't want you giving your social security number to contractors, landlords, etc. Then you're gonna put the recipient's tax identification number right here. So whatever information was on that W-9, okay? And then you are going to put recipient's name, street address, city, town, zip, your foreign postal code, and then you're gonna put their account number right here, okay? You don't have to have an account number assigned. This is optional. You don't have to have an account number assigned. If you have an account number for that particular vendor, you can put it there. Okay, box 1 is for rent. So this is probably the most common item that you guys are reporting here if you're watching this video. Rent goes in box 1, okay? You're also gonna put calendar year over here, so 2024. If we're talking about the 2024 filing season, which is gonna take place in 2025. And then there are a couple of other items in here. So you could potentially have state tax withheld on the bottom right here. Federal income tax withheld is up here in box 4. So if they're not exempt from withholding, then you would potentially have to fill out those boxes, okay? So that's how you fill it out for rent. Let's talk about some of these other items on here. So here's this box if you've made direct sales totaling $5,000 or more. Again, you can report this on either the 1099 NEC or the 1099 miscellaneous. You don't want to report it on both, okay? Only one or the other. You can also report royalties, other income, fishing boat proceeds, medical and healthcare payments, substitute payments in lieu of dividends or interest, crop insurance proceeds, gross proceeds paid to an attorney, fish purchased for resale, Section 409A deferrals, excess golden parachute payments, non-qualified deferred compensation. There's a lot of information on here, right? If you need to report these other items, I'm assuming you're either working with somebody or you've read the instructions. I'm not going to go over them just because there's a lot there, and the majority of the people watching this video don't need that information. So let's quickly go over this Form 1099 miscellaneous, the format in which this is downloaded from the IRS. So the first page is going to be instructions. Second page is copy A. This gets sent to the IRS. Okay, so for Internal Revenue Service Center. Now notice it says file with Form 1096. I'm going to show you that in a minute. This is copy 1 for State Tax Department. Certain states you are required to file a 1099 miscellaneous with. Okay, so certain states you also have to issue the 1099 miscellaneous to. So those are going to be states that the person or the business either resides in or the state in which they were doing business in. You may need to send this information to the state. Okay, it varies state by state. Miscellaneous information, copy B for recipient. This gets sent to the actual person that you paid the funds to, okay? So this gets sent to the individual or the business that you paid. There's multiple copies in here for them, so they get that. They get this instructions for recipient, I like to include that in there so they know what they're even getting. And then you can put copy 2 in there. This is to be filed with the recipient's state income tax return when required, okay? So this is just like an extra bonus copy that you can send to the recipient so that they have multiple copies. So there's 6 pages here. So only one of these gets filed with the IRS, okay? If there's no state requirement, at the minimum, the very bare minimum, you must send in the copy to the IRS with a Form 1096, which I'll show you in a minute, and a copy to the recipient, okay? The recipient needs to receive a copy of this as well. So when we're sending this to the IRS, it is also accompanied, that's W9, sorry. It is accompanied by Form 1096. This is Form 1096. This tells the IRS, hey, I have sent you a bunch of 1099s. Here's information on the forms that I'm sending you. This is what's included with this submission, okay? So it's gonna have the filer's name, so the business or individual, this is you, right? Because you're filing this with the IRS. Street address, name of person to contact, email address, phone number, fax number, your EIN or social, like whoever the filer is, and then total number of forms, federal income tax withheld, and total amount reported. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go in and you're gonna pick what forms you filed, okay? So right here, 1099 miscellaneous, like you can mark, I filed 1099 miscellaneous in here. I also have some 1099 MISCs. Maybe you also have like some 1099 interest, you paid interest. Maybe you have, you know, a 1099 div right here. Maybe your corporation, you're paying dividends. You just mark what forms are included. You're gonna include the total amount that you're filing, like that you're reporting. And then you're gonna put the total federal income tax withheld. You're gonna sign it, and this accompanies your 1099 forms, okay? So you can certainly file this by paper. If you're large enough and you have enough, then you need to file it electronically. But you can file this by paper if you're a small business. There are a lot of systems, though, that make it extremely easy to file these electronically. If you have a specific bookkeeping software or a payroll company, they may handle the 1099 filings for you. Okay, so they'll send your 1099s in with a 1096. So they may handle that for you. QuickBooks, for example, has a system. If you want a third-party system, you could go somewhere like Track 1099 or Tax 1099, and they'll electronically submit these. What's really nice about some of those systems is they'll also send the recipient of the 1099, so the contractor that you paid or the landlord, they'll send them a link to download their form. And when they do that, it's nice because that recipient isn't getting something in the mail and then setting it down and losing it, because that realistically that happens frequently. So that way, you know that the recipient, if they lose it, they can go back into their email and they can download it. So that's why I like those electronic versions. It's also nice because it's a third party submitting it for you, and so sometimes it's easier to have proof to the IRS that you submitted it. So that's Form 1099 miscellaneous. I'm gonna quickly recap, and then I'll see you guys in the next video, but let me quickly recap for you guys, okay? This is the About page for the 1099 miscellaneous. You're gonna file these forms if you've paid at least $10 in royalties, broker payments in lieu of dividends, or tax-exempt interest, okay? Or at least $600 in any of these other items. The biggest thing that you're probably gonna see here is rent, so, and payments to an attorney. The payments to an attorney are if it's not specifically for services. So there's other payments that you may make to an attorney that are not for services. Those are the payments reported on 1099 miscellaneous. You can also use it to report that you made direct sales of at least $5,000 of consumer products to a person or a business for resale anywhere other than a permanent retail establishment. The Form 1099 miscellaneous looks like this. There's a place for your payer's name, your payer's TIN, that's you. The recipient's TIN and their information comes from Form W9. If they refuse to fill out a W9, You technically should get that before you pay them and then just not pay them. However, if you have paid them and they still refuse to furnish a W-9, you can mark second tin, and then this will get you a penalty, but you're still compliant filing your 1099s, okay? Rent goes in box 1. That's going to most likely be the one that we're dealing with when it comes to 1099 miscellaneous if you're watching this video. There is a full set of instructions here. It goes over who is exempt from receiving a 1099 miscellaneous. Corporations are exempt for a lot of payments. Attorneys, law firms that are essentially a corporation, don't get that corporate exemption. And certain payments on the 1099 miscellaneous are still reportable even if you have paid a corporation for them, okay? 1099K payments don't go on your 1099 miscellaneous. So you'll know if it's a 1099K payment if it's going through a payment processor that is subject to 1099K reporting, such as PayPal, Goods and Services, QuickBooks, Square, Stripe, all those good ones. If you pay via cash, like physical cash, a physical check, a wire initiated from your bank, like not through a third party, that kind of stuff, those are all subject to 1099 NEC and miscellaneous reporting, depending on which type of payment we're dealing with. All 1099s need to go to the IRS with a Form 1096. Oops, right here. If you are sending it electronically through a 1099 system, they automatically prepare the 1096 for you, okay? So that's all I have. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, make sure you like and subscribe so you get the rest of our tax videos for the season. We're gonna go over a bunch of different information, such as filling out a Schedule C, a Schedule F, a Schedule E, bookkeeping tips for end of year, what a partnership is, S corporation, C corporation, all that good stuff. So I will see you guys next time.